If you are seeing me for the first time, my name is Lisa Ann Edwards. I'm a leadership development coach for social workers with a focus on burnout prevention, helping social workers care for themselves like they care for others, being whole, happy, and having better job satisfaction. Welcome to my live. I'm excited to talk to you today about having enough time and what time means to you, how we use time, the scarcity of time. This is the main topic on my podcast this week, so I wanted to talk about it in a bit more depth today. So, thank you for joining me. And I'm going to go straight into telling you about someone called Simon Squibb. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but I follow him on TikTok, and he's a millionaire, and essentially he goes around the streets of the UK and the US with his mic and his videographer, and he asks people, what is your dream? And some people turn around and say, I want to have a restaurant, I want to have my own pet grooming service. And there's so many people that he speaks to that also says, I want to do X, but I've tried to do X, but there's absolutely no way I can do this. But so there's always a space where people are thinking about how to keep themselves secure, how to keep themselves feeling safe. And this is something that I think we could talk about in relation to our time, because when we are working with families and when we are working with children, where particularly in the social work role, there's always something to do. There's always a chronology that needs to be made. There's always a phone call that needs to be followed up or an email that needs to be answered. And because of those different elements of the job and the way in which we have to multitask, there's moments in time where it's like, how am I going to deal with this? I don't have enough time to actually do all the things I need to do in the day. Now, coming back to my example of Simon Squibb, he asks people about what they want to achieve. Now, one person I remember watching is, I can't remember his name, but he's got a restaurant called Black Pearl. And he stopped him on the London Bridge. I think he's a Brazilian man. And he says, I love cooking. I want to cook. So Simon gave him some money and said, right, I want you to cook for me and my team tonight. And he did so. And then they actually proceeded to put a campaign out on Simon Squibb's network to say, support this guy. Do you think we should help him open a restaurant? And what happens is Simon's community gets behind him, gets behind the person that he's spoken to help them build their restaurant, to help them build their dream. There was another lady that he met who really enjoyed grooming dogs, and she wanted to open her own pet grooming service. And what he did was like, well, you could do this right now. And she's like, what do you mean? I think they were at some kind of event where there was lots of dogs there. And long story short, she actually set up a stand where she was on that day. I'm sure there was some red tape around that, which maybe his team helped with. And she started grooming dogs and, cutting their hair and brushing them. And, people were really impressed. And as a result of filming that, putting it on his platform, there were people that supported her to get her own business set up. And I believe that Simon, in the end, gave her some money, maybe some grands of money. It was under £10,000, I believe. And she actually got herself a mobile dog grooming unit that she could go around grooming people's dog on the move. And she left her work, quit her job, and that was the end of the story. And as I say, the rest is history. So I tell you that story to share with you. Yes, it's a far cry from the social work responsibilities, child protection, and crisis intervention. However, there are some morals within that, right? That I want you to just be considering, just to be thinking about. Because the idea of this live is to just get you thinking about the way you treat time, the way you perceive time, the way that you use time. So, in relation to the Simon Squibb story and the people that he helped on his platform, imagine if this guy who set up his own restaurant or food business and this lady who set up the pet grooming business, just imagine if they didn't say yes to themselves in that moment. Imagine if they didn't trust themselves in that moment. There is something about being more connected to self rather than things on the external that brings the best out of you, that brings that part of you that has a sense of possibility, a sense of potential, a sense of trying something new. And I want to link that directly to maybe it's your hard to reach families. Maybe it's that parent that you're struggling to engage, you're struggling to get a open dialogue with them. Think about ways in which you have not tried to engage with them before. Take a step back, really connect to what do I most enjoy about this role? What am I really good at? If it's building rapport, let's say 90% of your children and families on your caseload, you've got great rapport with, but just this one parent or just these two parents, this is the struggle. Take a step back and think about what is it you're best good at and how can you be creative in attempting to engage that parent? Because often it's about us connecting to ourselves and not leaning on or relying on something external. When we're relying on something external, bringing it back to time, that takes your potential out of it. The second thing is often we put a lot of security in the external. If we just do this, then this. If we just do X, then Y. And I think we have to be mindful of the ways in which we use those phrases because it creates messages in our brain, which then can create limitations for what we're trying to achieve. So if we're thinking about time and time scarcity, have I got enough time? Can I do that? I haven't got enough time. What that's doing is evoking those emotions that go along with that. Often it's fear and anxiety. So you end up working from the place of fear and anxiety. So perhaps if you're thinking about what time do I have to achieve X and Y, that gives it a completely different feeling, doesn't it? And this is what I would like to try and get across to you today, is that time scarcity mindset. Although that's something that I really struggled with when I was in practice. It was always, I don't have enough time for this. I don't have enough time for that. I'm apologizing for not being able to get back to somebody or email someone. All of that is linked to, okay, what do I have time for? Let me plan around that. Let me work to that. To that point, I want to mention to you a model that I use in a lot of my coaching sessions. And I find this model really, really helpful, particularly when you've got several things going on, which is the usual average social work day, right? You're being pulled in so many different directions. If it's not the phone ringing, it's an email. If it's not the email, it's crisis. If it's not crisis, it's Section 47. I know, I've been there. So this model sometimes helps to just, what's the word? Calm down those thoughts a little bit. No, order the thoughts a little bit better and get you working from the place where you feel you are more in control and moving away from scarcity and moving more into a place where you feel that you are in control of what's happening. And there are complexities around that. Of course, there are. You don't know there's going to be a Section 47 or not tomorrow morning. You don't know if you've got to do a CP medical, on Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. Everybody knows what that means. If you're in CP, you know what that means at 3 p.m. So what we're going to do is talk to you about a model called the sphere of influence. Now, you may be familiar with this already, and if you are, great. I hope you're using this model, but I use this with the majority of my coaching clients because they often come into a session like, oh my gosh, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. My dog's done this, my cat's done this, my children, and I have to bring them to school. So it's like, okay, A, what do you want to achieve? That's first question. B, let's order some of these thoughts and put them in a place where you understand what is more in your control than not. Because there's times where we spend a lot of energy worrying about, thinking about, considering things that we don't have control over. And that is one of the first parts of these models. So I want you to think of 3 circles like the Bronfenbrenner ecological model. And that third circle, the outer circle, it's the colour red. And inside of that circle, I want you to write the words no control and no influence. Now, within that, that means essentially this situation that you're facing, this parent that you're finding difficult to engage, you have no control or no influence over it for whatever reason. Now let's move to the next circle, which is your second circle in. That colour is yellow. That circle is called influence. So these are things that you can influence. So for example, your recommendations in a CP conference report or your court statement, that's something you have influence over. But the red area, your no control, no influence, you don't have any control or any influence over what that outcome's going to be or what the parent's solicitor is going to ask you on the stand. Lastly, we have the third circle, which is the inner circle, and it's the colour green. And inside of that circle is the word control. It's the word control. So these are all the things you can control, and that's completely and utterly within your realm of influence. So, for example, you can control what you write in your assessment to an extent, because I know we have pre-populated single assessments, right? But you have control of how you gather that information. So let's bring this down to what situation are you facing right now where you feel like you just don't have enough time? And think about it within that model of the sphere of influence. Okay. I'm going to move on. Thank you for joining me on Instagram. I can see you. So I'm going to move on to talk about some of the causes of the scarcity mindset. And I think it's key that we understand what some of these causes are, so then we're bringing awareness to it as and when it may come up for us, right? Now, one of them is around unrealistic expectations on yourself or on others. And this is a big one because most of the work that we do is linked to the fact that we are expecting others to carry out a task of some sort or to follow through with the plan. Right? We know as social workers, we can't execute that plan alone. We need a team around the child. You need parents on board. You need to be doing your direct work with children. But in and amongst that, this is why we have what we introduced some time ago now into a lot of our report writing was the SMART goals approach. And in the CP plans, having SMART goals, making sure they're realistic, making sure they're measurable. So think about in the way that you're perceiving time, whether unrealistic expectations is part of the makeup that creates or contributes to the time scarcity mindset. We've talked about this before. I've talked about this on the podcast, Dear Social Worker, Let's Talk. And that is the main topic of the podcast this week. So if you want more detail about what I'm talking about, please head over there. The link should be in the comments. Prioritization is key. We know this, but what about failing to prioritize? Let's talk about that for a moment. Are there moments where you actually failing to prioritize and everything's just a big mush when you get up in the morning or when you start work and turn your laptop on and you delve into your emails, you delve into whatever list you had yesterday and everything is just coming out of the same pot? There's no particular order, even though you may be trying to get that order. But this is going to take a sense of honesty with yourself. You know, are you being orderly? Are you able to prioritize? Are you taking a step back to make space for ordering your thoughts, ordering your day? Now, I say ordering your day with trepidation because I know something can come in and drop a bomb on the whole day. We know this. So we're not accounting for those days in its entirety, but we have to lend some thought to if you have a priority plan and you're not sticking to it, or you just don't have one whatsoever, that is going to contribute to the mindset of not having enough time because it's not being managed. Now think about this. As I'm talking to you, for you as a social worker, I want you to also be parallel processing, linking it to parents that you're working with, linking it to professionals that you're working with, right? Failing to prioritize. So are parents struggling to prioritize what you've asked them to complete on the plan? Have we got the right support mechanisms to help them prioritize what's important, what's the order of things that need to be completed? Yes, we give them CP plans with the SMART goals and the times in which to actually complete those. But let's just bring this back a bit and think about the mindset of that parent. We talk about mentalization as well when we're considering this, but think about that just for a second. Think about where they may be on that sphere of influence, red, yellow, or green area. Are they mainly living in this red area? Are they mainly living in the green area? If so, what impact does that have on their approach to completing the CP plan or your children in need plan or your children in care plan? Because this is going to help you as a person personally and professionally, but we can flip this and think and try and get into the mind and the life and the ecosystem of the parent and the child through your assessment work, and think about how can we use this information to work with parents, to work with teams around the child. Okay, this is a big one, and I was terrible for this in practice. Underestimating how long a task is going to take. I mean, a lot of people do that. We're not on our own for that. However, that is going to impact how you see time, particularly on that day. If you think something's going to take you 2 hours, what mood are you going to be in by the time you've done 4? Right? We have to think about these things. It's going to have an impact. And if you are underestimating how long a task will take, what do you need to do? What's going to be most helpful for you moving forward to move away from that? What's going to be most helpful for you? Number 4, lacking clear, actionable goals. We do SMART goals for our parents in all the plans. Are you doing them for yourself? We've got to ask that question. We've got to be honest with ourselves. Are you doing it for yourself? If some of you are going, yes, but crisis intervention, absolutely, crisis intervention is going to happen. That's going to require a different level of you. It's going to require a different pace from you. And it's also going to require you to think about time differently in the event of your Section 47, your CP medical at 3 p.m. on Friday. What's going to happen to what you were meant to do that day, or what you had planned for that day, or that visit for that parent? Sometimes we have to find ways of being adaptable and building in these adaptable moments throughout the week as far as you possibly can. Okay. What about distractions? I've got 2 more after this. What about distractions? How are you managing distractions? Are you being effective? Are you being ineffective? What is distracting you? Is something distracting you? I know sometimes in the office pre-COVID days, gathering around the biscuit tin when someone brought in new biscuits or new cakes, that can take 20 minutes out of your day. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because you need that social time, I believe, when you are in this particular job, any job for that matter, actually. However, how does that impact on what you have planned for the day? These are the things that we have to think of. Okay, so now you've blinked and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you feel like you haven't done anything. What's happened to the time? How are you perceiving that? How are you treating that? Just take a moment to reflect on that. Okay, what about just being busy? Just like, I'm busy. In every office, I think I saw a post somewhere on Instagram. Was it Instagram or was it Community Care? I can't remember, but I remember some years ago, and they actually outlined like 7 different personalities of a social worker, and one of them was like someone who's saying that they're always busy and they're running back and forth to the photocopier, and with that being said, the other team members, they're rolling their eyes like, yeah, right. There's a sense of being busy, but are you really doing something? Are you really being productive? Are you being productive? That's definitely a question to be asking yourself. Are you being productive? And the reason I'm sharing some of this with you is because my podcast is out this week. It's out on Mondays at 7 a.m. And this week we've had a focus on time, too much work, too little time. And I go through 3 practical steps to manage that. And I also go through 3 different steps to what could be the cause of that. Some of the causes that I've talked about today, I haven't talked about on the podcast. So I would encourage you to listen to the podcast, Dear Social Worker, Let's Talk. If you're listening on Instagram, if you click the link in the bio, there's a link to the podcast there. If you're following me on LinkedIn, I'm sure you already know about the podcast. But if you don't, there should be a link to it below. If there isn't, I will put it in the comments afterwards. But I would encourage you to listen to that, to listen to the other 3 causes of the time scarcity mindset, and also look at 3 practical strategies to support you with that as you move through your working week. Now, one thing I want to mention to you is the risk of burnout quiz. So we are all, as social workers, prone to burnout. We're exposed to trauma, we're exposed to high level stress. We are prone to burnout, and I think it's key we have an understanding of what increases that risk. So if you see at the top right hand side of the screen, you will see a QR code, the middle one. That will take you straight to the quiz, and through that you will get videos, you will get an archetype which gives you an indication of your risk to burnout. At the end of that, there'll be a list of products and services that will be able to support you should you wish to take that up. Alongside that, we have the Empowering Social Workers Conference. I'm so excited. Oh my God, I'm so excited. That's going to be happening 13th of April, Saturday, in London. The tickets are now available. The link will be in my posts, and we'll be talking about more of that as time comes up. The speakers that will be there, the panel speakers, all of that good stuff. I cannot wait for that. You don't want to miss out on that, because I've never seen this done before. I'm going to be the first. I'll be the trailblazer. And sometimes you have to fail forward, right? And I say fail forward because I don't know if there's going to be a bunch of people that really, really want to come to this event, right? I just feel that us coming together as a community, independent of our employers, is going to be magnetic. And I mean magnetic in the sense that we can share stories, share experiences, network, talk about things that we don't get a chance or time to talk about, right? And I know, because I've created this space online, I've got peers who've created other spaces online, and there is an appetite for these types of gatherings for social workers to come together, particularly when they're not from the same local authority. So I would like to formally pull a space together where we can be together and we can learn, grow together. We're going to be covering well-being, leadership. We're also going to be talking about motivation. We're going to have motivational speakers there to support you on your journey, because it's a very lonely journey sometimes, very busy journey sometimes. And if you would like to be part of that event, I am looking for stall holders who want to be a stall holder. You can get in contact with me. Just DM me the word stall, or put stall in the comments, and I will send you a link for your pack. There's a QR code at the top. It says events. Scan that, and you can have a look at the event itself, called Empowering Social Workers Conference, and you can get your tickets now. Lastly, I want to talk to you. I always have a bonus. I love putting bonuses in. So if you are still listening, I can see we're still listening on Instagram. So hi, it's nice to see you. But one thing I want to mention as I leave you is the word permission. This is coming up a lot in my coaching sessions lately. The word permission. What does that mean to you when I mention to you the word permission? What comes up for you? Thinking about work? Trying to get this stray hair under control. Where is it? There it is. Do you think about work? Are you thinking about home? What comes up for you? Because I feel like when we're thinking about the word permission in the context of I don't have enough time, I think we need to be considering it from the Simon Squibb point of view. If you was listening from the beginning, Simon Squibb, who walks around asking people what's their dream, he invests in their dream or helps them shift their mindset from I can't leave work because, or I can't set up a business because. And he helps them move from that. But they've got to be able to give themselves permission in order to move to the next step. They've got to give themselves permission in order to feel like they're able to achieve, even if they fail, achieve their dream, achieve opening that business. So if you know my story, there had to be a level of permission I gave myself to leave frontline practice and say, right, I'm setting up the social work coaching hub and I'm setting up this podcast. If I didn't give myself permission to do that, you wouldn't know who I am right now. I wouldn't have the coaching clients that I have right now. I wouldn't be writing books right now. Oh yeah, forgot about the books. The QR code is up there. Go for it. Have a look. They're planners and stuff to make your life easier. I don't want to stray too much on the point. I digress. The permission to give yourself the opportunity, the chance to grow, to step into your potential is within your green area. It is within your sphere of influence. If we go back to that model, that middle section that says control, it's within your control. The question is, how are you going to make use of it? My name is Lisa Ann Edwards. I'm a leadership development coach with a focus on burnout prevention, helping social workers to care for themselves like they care for others so they are whole and have job satisfaction. I am really happy to be with you today, and I'm so glad that some of you have been with me. I think some of you LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, we're doing it all. We're doing it all. But I'm glad you're all with me. I will have a newsletter that follows later this week. And if you have any questions for me, you know where you can find me. It's been great speaking with you. Trust this has been valuable. Remember, you're not alone.